Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Ready to explore some more fascinating ideas with me?
Always.
Today we're diving into the Baha'i perspective and some pretty big topics.
Oh, yeah.
Creation, evolution, and the soul.
Wow, those are some big ones.
You might be surprised at how differently Baha'is view these things compared to a lot of other perspectives.
Yeah, it's a really unique worldview that blends science and spirituality in a really interesting way.
So instead of a universe with like a definite beginning,
Right, like a big bang and that's it.
yeah, the Baha'i Faith sees creation as eternal. Like it's constantly ongoing, no beginning and no end.
It's like a constant unfolding of God's creative power.
Okay, so let me try to wrap my head around this.
Yeah.
Are we talking like multiple big bangs, or it's something even more complex that we can't even imagine right now?
Well, it's not so much about like specific events like big bangs. It's more about shifting our whole perspective of time.
Okay.
Baha'u'llah, who's the prophet founder of the Baha'i Faith, describes this in the Kitab-i-Quran. He says, God's will is the cause of all creation. Creation itself has no beginning and no end.
So it's less about pinpointing a start date and more about this never-ending flow of creation.
Exactly. Imagine a universe that's always in motion, always being created.
That's a pretty mind-blowing concept.
It is.
And does this never-ending creation include the possibility of life on other planets?
Absolutely. The Baha'i writings are very clear that life isn't limited to Earth.
So we're not alone.
In fact, Abdul-Baha, who is a really key figure in the Baha'i Faith, said that the vastness of creation is beyond our human comprehension.
Wow, so maybe all the sci-fi movies aren't that far-fetched after all.
Maybe not.
But okay, if creation is this vast and eternal process, how does that fit with the idea of evolution?
Yeah, because we usually think about evolution having a starting point, right?
Right.
Well, here's where the Baha'i Faith makes a really important distinction between physical and spiritual evolution.
Okay.
So they totally acknowledge the scientific evidence for evolution, like natural selection. They see it as part of this divinely guided system.
So no conflict between faith and science.
Nope. They see those two as totally complementary ways of understanding reality.
Okay.
The Baha'i writings actually encourage investigating both the material world and the spiritual world.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a really holistic perspective.
But where does the soul fit into all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question.
If our bodies evolved over millions of years, does that mean our souls did too?
This is where the Baha'i perspective gets really interesting.
Okay.
So they believe that the soul is not a product of evolution at all.
Oh,
It's a completely separate spiritual reality created by God, and it's eternal.
so our souls exist before our bodies and after our bodies.
Exactly. It's there before birth, and it continues after death.
Okay.
Abdul-Baha described it really beautifully. He said, the soul is the reality of man, the source of his powers.
Wow.
So it's like the core essence of who we are.
So while our bodies might have evolved from, earlier primates, our souls have a completely different origin story.
Yeah, it's a completely different realm.
Okay, this is giving me a whole new way to think about myself.
Good.
But if the soul isn't evolving in a biological way, how does it grow and develop?
That's a great question.
What's the point of this life if our soul is already eternal?
Right. Well, this brings us to the concept of spiritual evolution.
Okay.
It's a journey of growth that happens within the soul itself. It's about cultivating virtues, deepening our understanding, and moving closer to God.
So it's less about physical changes and more about this internal transformation of the soul.
You've got it.
Is that what this earthly experience is for?
Yeah, you're catching on quickly.
Okay.
The Baha'i teachings see this life as a really important stage in the soul's eternal journey.
Okay.
It's a training ground, you could say, where we face challenges, build relationships, and make choices that all contribute to shaping our souls.
So it's like boot camp for the soul. But I'm still trying to wrap my head around how our everyday actions, like the little things, can actually shape our spiritual growth.
Right. Well, this is where Abdul-Baha's writings provide some really amazing insights. He explains that while the soul is independent of the physical body, it uses this earthly experience as a vehicle for learning and growing.
Hold on. I'm going to need you to unpack that a little bit.
Okay, sure.
How can something eternal and spiritual learn and grow from something as temporary and physical as our bodies?
It's a fascinating concept, right?
Yeah.
And I think to really dive into that, we need to look more closely at Abdu'l-Bahá's explanations.
Okay, let's do it.
All right.
I'm ready to explore more of these ideas. This deep dive is already making me rethink some pretty fundamental stuff.
Yeah, I think you'll find Abdu'l-Bahá's insights to be really both profound and practical.
Okay, so we're diving deeper into Abdu'l-Bahá's ideas about the soul's journey.
Yes.
And I'm still kind of stuck on this idea that something eternal can learn and grow from something as temporary as our physical bodies.
Right.
It's a tricky concept.
Yeah, how does that work?
Well, Abdu'l-Bahá really emphasizes that the soul isn't dependent on the physical body at all for its existence.
Okay.
Think of it like this. You have a beautiful, intricate lamp, right?
Mm-hmm.
The lamp itself can exist with or without the light bulb.
Right.
But the bulb is what lets you see the lamp's beauty and its design.
So the soul is like the lamp and our body is kind of like the light bulb.
Exactly.
I like that.
The soul is there before we're born, and it continues after our physical death. This life is really just one chapter in a much longer story.
That's a pretty different way of thinking about life and death than a lot of people have.
It is. It shifts the whole perspective.
Yeah, if the soul isn't tied to the body, then death isn't an ending.
Right. It's more of a transition.
Okay, so from the Baha'i view, death is the soul being freed from the body.
Exactly. It allows the soul to continue its journey in the spiritual realm.
But if we're not our bodies and our souls are on this journey of spiritual growth, what does that mean for how we live our lives here? Well, it really highlights how important our actions are.
Okay.
Even though the soul is eternal, the Baha'i teachings are really clear that our time on earth is precious.
Mm-hmm.
It's this incredible opportunity to gain knowledge, develop virtues, and contribute to making the world a better place.
So it's like we've been given this amazing instrument,
Yes.
our physical bodies,
Yes.
and we have a limited amount of time to learn how to play it
I love that analogy.
and create something beautiful.
The Baha'i writings actually offer a lot of guidance on how to play this instrument effectively.
Right.
They emphasize things like prayer, meditation, service to others, striving for excellence in everything you do.
So our actions in this world have a direct impact on our spiritual growth.
They do. Every choice, every action shapes our souls.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It is a big responsibility.
I'm starting to see how this all fits together. The Baha'i Faith sees creation as this eternal process with life potentially existing all over the universe. Evolution is like this divinely guided force that shapes the physical world.
Right.
And the soul is on a separate journey of spiritual evolution.
Exactly.
And our time on earth is this precious opportunity to learn and grow and refine our souls.
You got it.
Is there anything else we should add to this picture?
You've done a really great job summarizing it.
Thanks.
But maybe we could add one more thread to that tapestry. The concept of unity.
Oh, right. Unity is a big deal in the Baha'i Faith, isn't it?
It is.
How does that tie into everything we've been talking about?
Well, the Baha'i teachings suggest that just as humanity is evolving towards greater unity on a physical level, like through globalization,
Okay.
our souls are also on this journey of spiritual unification.
So you're saying our individual spiritual journeys are connected to the evolution of humanity as a whole.
Exactly. As individuals develop virtues like love, compassion, justice, and unity, it contributes to the spiritual advancement of everyone.
So it's like individual growth fuels collective progress.
And vice versa. It's this beautiful reciprocal process.
That's a really hopeful message,
Yeah.
especially in a world where there's so much division.
It is. It reminds us that working towards a better world isn't just an external thing, it's also a spiritual endeavor.
This conversation has been so eye-opening.
I'm glad.
We've covered so much ground: the eternal nature of creation, the journey of the soul, and now this idea of unity.
It's a lot to take
It
in.
really makes you think about the world differently.
The Baha'i teachings offer such a rich understanding of our existence, and they really encourage us to think about the deeper meaning and purpose of our lives.
So I know we've talked about a lot, but the Baha'i Faith also has some really interesting things to say about the nature of reality itself.
Oh, yeah.
They seem to challenge our usual ideas about what's real and what's not.
Right. They really push us to expand our awareness and consider possibilities beyond what we typically perceive.
Sounds like we're about to enter a whole new dimension of this conversation.
I think so. It's going to get really mind-bending.
Okay, let's dive into the Baha'i perspective on the nature of reality. Okay, so we've talked about creation as this eternal process, the soul's journey, and now we're getting to the nature of reality itself.
Right. The big questions.
You mentioned that the Baha'i Faith challenges our usual ideas about what's real.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we usually think about reality as what we can see and touch and measure, right?
The physical world.
Exactly. But the Baha'i teachings say there's more to it than that.
So are we talking like a parallel universe or something?
Not exactly. It's not so much a separate universe as it is a different realm of existence that exists alongside ours.
Okay.
The Baha'i writings talk about this dual nature of reality.
Okay.
We have the physical world, which we experience with our senses, and then we have the spiritual realm that exists beyond our physical perception.
Okay, so there's the material world and the spiritual world.
Exactly.
Are they completely separate, or do they like interact somehow?
That's a great question, and the Baha'i teachings suggest that they're actually interconnected.
Oh, well.
They influence each other.
Yeah.
What we do in the physical world can have an impact on the spiritual realm.
Really?
And the other way around, too.
So you're saying there's a connection between my actions in this world and the spiritual realm?
Exactly.
Like even small things like helping someone out or being kind.
Yeah, the Baha'i writings really emphasize that our thoughts, actions, and intentions in this physical world have an effect in the spiritual realm.
Wow, that's pretty mind-blowing.
It is.
It makes you think about the consequences of your actions differently.
It really encourages a shift in perspective.
Yeah, because we're not just physical beings acting in a material world.
Right, we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Okay, so this whole idea of a dual reality raises a big question for me.
What's that?
If we can't see or touch the spiritual realm, how do we even know it exists?
Good question. The Baha'i teachings talk about developing our spiritual faculties through practices like prayer, meditation, and acts of service.
So it's not about like putting on special glasses to suddenly see the spiritual realm.
No, not at all.
It's more about cultivating our inner awareness.
Exactly. It's about developing a sensitivity to those spiritual forces that are always at play.
This whole conversation has been like a journey of expanding my awareness.
I'm glad to hear that.
We started with the vastness of creation, then explored the soul's journey,
Right.
and now this idea of a dual reality.
It all connects together.
It really changes how you see the world.
The Baha'i teachings offer such a unique and inspiring perspective.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the Baha'i perspective on creation, evolution, and the soul.
It's been a great conversation.
It really has. I hope our listeners have enjoyed exploring these ideas with us.
Me too. And maybe a final thought to leave everyone with.
Okay.
If we are spiritual beings on a journey of growth, what does that mean for how we approach our lives?
That's a great question for everyone to ponder.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and keep exploring these big questions.